Welcome back to another episode of What's on Your Plate podcast. Today, I am honored to introduce you to Teresa Carnegie, who has found transformation within her traumas. She began to write as a way to find herself again, and since has become a published author and self-publishing coach. Welcome, Teresa.
Thank you very much for having me today.
I'm so excited that you're here. This is this is a subject that is really interesting to me, not just the writing part, but how you have basically healed yourself from the many different traumas that you have endured. And I really just would love it if you took us back a bit and told us your story of how this all started.
First of all, thank you so much. It's always nice to feel validated that you've gone through stuff. So thank you. I appreciate you, making me blush with that. So yeah, I was one of those people that, you know, work, 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 achieve, achieve, achieve. So I was working, 40 plus hours a week, and I was in two night classes a semester. And so I was really pushing myself, and my dad was really sick with cancer, and so you just keep really pushing. And my dad passed away. A week later, I was sitting at a red light, and a 90-year-old person drove into me and rebounded and hit me a second time because no reflexes. And I ended up out like of work for like I stayed home from work for like 4 months in total. That concussion that I got, because it was a double whammy concussion, it took me forever to get over, actually several years to get over. And injuries in the body, and I just had a really tough time. And then when I got back to work, um, things had changed, and things that I took, my job got changed, my location of my desk got changed, like all these things that I took comfort in that I knew. And when you're coming back from a concussion, that is really hard. And then, I couldn't do what I used to do. I couldn't do all the running around. I couldn't do lifting. I couldn't do, the go, go, go while I was at my job. And that left a lot of, I don't know. Do you want to say jealousy? I don't know their feelings, but my coworkers didn't react as in a empathic way as I would have appreciated at that time. And I just kept pushing myself to get back into work, go, go, go. And I ended up with things like, opening up the fridge and a 500 milliliter bottle of water falls and lands on my foot and breaks my foot. And, walking one day and the next morning waking up with a sprained ankle in three places and not having a clue how it happened. And then there were three car accidents in 14 months, none of them my fault. So by the end of that 14 months, I had panic attacks because I thought everybody was trying to kill me. And I only knew about that because I was sitting in my doctor's office having one day because there started to get all these people in there, and I freaked out thinking I was unsafe. And that's how I found out about panic attacks. And then shortly after that third car accident, a lifelong friend of mine passed away. And then this is icky. I got scabies, which I didn't even know was a thing until I got them. And that kind of broke me, because now, not only I was alone and nobody could come near me because I was contagious, literally. And it was really hard. And during this time, was still dealing with all the work stuff. And I saw a pain specialist who told me that my very high pain tolerance mixed with my just keep going attitude was actually stopping me from healing. And things kind of got to a point at work between everything all at once. I just walked into the boss's office one day, and when it was Friday and I was leaving on vacation on Wednesday, and I said, here's my 2 weeks notice. And that was a job I'd had for 13 and a half years. So it was a really hard thing to do. And about a month later, my naturopath, it was a few weeks after that, my naturopath said, I'm going to have to reschedule. I'm not feeling well. I'm going to have to reschedule our appointment. And 2 weeks later, he had passed away. 2 months after that, I had just seen my doctor a few weeks before, and I had to go back and I went to make a doctor's appointment. I went to phone and the phone had been disconnected because she suddenly closed her practice because she was sick. So it was a really, really tough year and a half. And like I said, it was just like every time I kept pushing and pushing, and I ended up with like sprained ankle, broken foot. I sprained both pinkies falling because, concussions and you're trying to get back and go, go, go. And it just was like you get to that point where no matter what you do, you just keep getting pushed backwards. And I couldn't, when I left my job, at that point, I think I pushed it a little too far because I broke, is how I word it. I had a hard time getting out of bed some days. I really had a hard time leaving the house because those panic attacks gave me all kinds of fear. I suddenly was afraid of the dark. So I couldn't leave my house. If it was dark, I was scared I was going to die.
Mm.
If people came too close to me some days, I thought they were going to kill me. Like it just, there was all these fears that I'd never had in my entire life coming at me. And um, I'm not real good at just sitting around. And I find it a little hard. And when you're, having to sit around to try and heal, it was hard. So I just started writing. And I started with I ordered subscription boxes. You get those really cool ones with makeup or household things and exercise. I couldn't do a lot of exercise at that time, but I didn't care. I was like all excited to get these subscription boxes. And I started a website and I wrote about what came in the box and how I felt about it. And kind of just my idea was giving information. And it started with those subscription boxes. And then it was, hey, I'm going to go check out this bakery that I've never been to before in, this part of town that I've always wanted to spend more time in. And I would go and then I would write about that and put it on the website. And that was a few months. And one day I was at home and I was talking to my mom on the phone and I got an email about a flight sale and booked a trip for 3 months to Australia and New Zealand. I did have friends there that I had met when I had lived in England. So it was, I think, in those 3 months, I think I spent a total of 2 or 3 weeks on my own. Otherwise, I was surrounded by people who I hadn't seen in a long time. So they wanted to be around me. They were excited to be around me, and no one judged me for being different and not living up to the way I used to be. And it also, the writing made it so it wasn't like, oh, I'll just stay in and all day today and sleep, or, I'm just going to lay in bed. Or it was, I'm only here for how long I have to go see these things and I have to write about it. And it really helped me, those two things, the connections with people who wanted to be around me and the were excited to be around me, and the writing. Those were the two things that kept me going and keep going. And then you can't just write about the same thing all the time. So it had me, I got to look for other things. What could I try and do? Or what could I see that I could write about? What could I try that I can write about? And it was an awesome way to just move on, like kind of get out of my funk. Did it heal me as far as panic attacks and anxiety? No, still had them, but it definitely helps you. It helped me. Um, I don't want to say control, but put it in perspective a little. Like the anxiety and the panic attacks weren't controlling my life all 24/7. It wasn't every day I did something and I didn't think that somebody was trying to kill me constantly. So it was a slow progression of helping me, but it was definitely a progression. And so it's why I always tell people, if you're dealing with a lot of trauma, try and learn something new, something you've always wanted to do, something you never thought you could do, something you never had the time, something you thought was frivolous. Just take a chance, try and learn it. You then have no expectations about what you do, how long it takes you. You have no expectations of where you should be with it, of your achievements, that kind of thing. And it really just takes a lot of pressure off you while still giving you that fun and exciting aspect of learning new things and doing something you want to do. And it's like, oh, you get really excited about it.
Yeah. This is a really inspiring conversation for me already. One of the things that's a couple of things really stand out to me about your journey that you've shared so far. And one of them is the way that you just were able to understand that the universe was really just pushing back in a way that was giving you all the signs it possibly could to tell you that it was time to walk a different path. It was time to divert to something else. And you tried so hard to just stay the course because clearly you were comfortable. I think you said 13
Yes,
years
yes.
in what you were doing. And that's what everybody expected of you. And that's what you knew how to do.
Yeah.
And it took so many shoves, so many pushes.
Or as I like to
Um,
say, the universe smacked me upside the head.
yeah, I mean, literally in some ways, right?
Literally. Yeah. I had many
um,
concussions for that short period of time.
which that in and of itself is, you know, astonishing that happened. I'm so sorry that happened to you. But what you learned from going through the process of just trying to regain what was instead of walking into the direction of what was supposed to be and finally embracing that. And I think that's true for all of us. I think all of us
Oh
would
yeah.
be just trying to regain what was because we felt like
Yeah.
we had lost something in ourselves by
Yes.
the trauma and the injuries. So trying to recover that somehow. But
It's almost,
you going into the direction of something entirely new, entirely different is empowering, honestly. I mean, you did something that was completely unknown to you and the people that knew you. And I find that just incredibly inspiring. You rewrote
thank
your
you.
story.
That's really, thank you. As I said earlier, it is so nice to be validated. Those external validations are really nice sometimes. So thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. It wasn't easy. As I explained, it was the
Mhm,
constant need to get back to who I was
mhm.
before, where I was in life before. It's really hard. I mean, I had a mortgage, car payment, all this stuff to pay, and it's really hard to figure out how you can pay your bills when you know you don't leave your job, you don't do this, you don't do that, because you're like, I have to pay these bills, I have a mortgage to pay, I have all these things to do and pay. And it really tends to hold you back from taking chances because it's a fear, right? I got to pay these things. How will I survive? How will my family survive? And I'm not telling everybody to just walk out and quit their job. Holy crap, no. Because that is not for everyone. And I had what's that called? When I left, I got money for leaving the job because I had been there so
Mm.
long,
Oh,
and
like a
there was
severance.
I got severance. Thank you for the words. Thank you. So I did get severance, and with the car accident, I ended up getting a settlement. So it wasn't that I was no money at all. Did I know that at the time? No. I did take that chance, but I think that you have to take a chance that you're comfortable with. And that's why what I did isn't going to work for everybody, but what you do in your own life, if you follow those, please try and listen before the universe whacks you upside the head repeatedly, because it's not worth it to not listen. I try and be a little bit more listening to my intuition, or seeing the signs that are happening and kind of pushing me in different directions, sort of thing. And trying not to let the fear hold me back. Um, and it does still, there's still situations. I had something this summer, and my mom again, she was like, why are you pushing so hard against this? And I was like, I don't know. It's just that. And the things in life are going to happen whether you resist them or go with them. And it's a lot easier to go than to resist. And you never know. I mean, I always say, my entire life, I was told I wasn't artistic, I wasn't creative. I believed I was a technical minded person. I mean, my job was, you know, um, more on the how the plumbing behind your wall works and if the systems aren't working. And I was dealing with engineers and contractors, and I was in school to design those systems. So I was very much in the technical aspect of life. And so to start writing was the biggest leap I think I've taken. Um, I mean, I've done things in life that were big leaps, but this one almost felt the scariest because it was going against every single thing I thought of myself or I knew of who I was. And but it just felt like something to do, and it was easy to do in my situation. And there was no push, there was no expectations, and I did it. And then I remember it was about a year after I started that. Um, I ended up, some coffee chat online with somebody, and she called me a writer. And I said, "Oh, no, I'm not a writer. I mean, I've never gone to school. I'm not professional in any way." And there was a pause, and she goes, "You have a website that says otherwise." And I was like, "Oh my, really? That's a thing? Oh, huh." And next thing I know, I'm joining a writing group. And then I'm meeting all these creative people and these people that have written their whole lives. And I was like, instead of being intimidated, I was a little intimidated, don't get me wrong, people knew what they were doing. But it was so exciting. And like, I was sitting there one day, I remember just sitting there one day and everybody's writing. We're in a coffee shop, but room in the back of a coffee shop. And I'm like, oh wow, I feel like I'm in the right place. I'm just like, I was so happy. Like, your heart, your soul is so happy and excited to be where you are. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I just started paying attention to people, and I started thinking, I want to write fiction. Because another thing that happened was two times in one week, I had people say, "Wow, it must be so exciting to have stories in your head." And I was like, wait, what? Wait, this is not something everybody has in their head? Like, are you kidding me? This is like not normal, the average kind of thing. You always think, I like to put quotations around the word normal, because there's nothing normal about people. Um, but yeah, and that got really exciting, and I was like, I'm going to try doing this fiction thing. And then I got intimidated with the idea of doing fiction and self-publishing. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to take some of the stuff I've already written and I'm going to learn the self-publishing process. And so that's what led me into, doing that. But it was definitely a process, and I had to, and I'm not saying I listen like I said, just this past year, I was fighting what was happening around me and to me and in my life. And so it's not something I constantly do, but I am getting better all the time at listening and paying attention and not fighting it as much. And it's amazing. It's scary. But the other thing I've learned in dealing with the healing from all of this stuff, because, when you have a lot of stuff happen in a short period of time, it's amazing when everything from your whole life starts bubbling up, all the trauma and emotions you've ever experienced and shoved down and never dealt with start coming up, and you're now dealing with things you didn't even know were a problem for you. And it was something I realized was I had to learn to recognize my emotions, acknowledge my emotions, and then I literally had to talk to people and ask, how do you process emotions? Because I did not know how. And I have learned the best way to do that is just face them, feel them, face them. Don't run away, don't hide, don't, it's going to hurt, but it's going to hurt more, I know from experience, when it comes up later in life. So it's kind of like that when you have life showing you a new way. You kind of want to hide push it away, shove it down, run away, turn around, because it's not the way you planned. It's not what you expected, or it's too big for you. It's not, you're not capable. It's like, oh my gosh, no, you start heavy breathing. I can't do that. And I'm learning to just try and flow, go with it. Um, we're on a podcast right now, and this happened because one day I do these things where I go out and have do a little something different to try and keep my creativity flowing. And that day I had been at a pier and ran through a little water park when the kids weren't there, and felt really excited even as people were staring at me for dripping wet and looking a little messy, and I didn't care. And went to a coffee shop to start writing and working on something. And I happened to check Facebook, and there was, somebody asking, looking for guests for podcast. And I was like, huh, I'll just comment. Like there was no pushback. I was in a good state of mind kind of thing. I was in a really good place that day. And I just commented. And I remember I had, talked to this person about being on their podcast. And then the very next time I commented on something, I think it was for a live. And it was in a week. And I ended up doing it. And I was so scared. But I was like, well, this is where I'm going right now. What's the worst that could happen? I could be embarrass myself. And maybe podcasting isn't what, I'm gonna do, but what if it is? And what if it works out? So it's scary. But the benefits of going with it and just doing the little changes, sometimes they're big changes, sometimes they're small, tiny ones. It's worth it. It's fun. And it makes life a lot more exciting than when I was comfortable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, there's so much that you said there about just
Sorry, I just kept going.
how you found yourself in the space of being a writer. And that term in and of itself, I think, is something that is worth commenting on, because the initial notion that you had that you were not a writer, that, oh, that's not me, I don't identify with that, that's not who I am. Um, that's like saying, I'm not a reader. But if you read anything in any capacity, you are a reader, right? You're reading something. Um,
Wow, that was really well put. I like that.
so anybody that's able to put words down or thoughts down is a
I was gonna
writer
say,
in some way, right? We just
yeah.
get so stuck in our imposter syndrome of
Um,
thinking that we need to have some type of formality or something official to be able to claim or identify with something, that we just really, really get stuck in our own way
and it's the
so much.
title, it's the title. It's
Hmm.
the, embracing the title or fighting the title. And it's like, well, did I need the title? Because, like you just pointed out, I do write. Even if you write journaling, you journal for yourself, you're writing, you know. It's
I think
wow, I
it's the
really like that you worded it
distinction.
that way.
I think it's the distinction of people feeling like they are maybe getting paid for it or doing something that is
Mhm.
impactful to other people as a
That's a good
result
point.
of it. Maybe that's how people determine whether they are a writer, for example.
Mhm.
Is it only benefiting you, or is it benefiting other people as well? But I would argue that, again, anybody that is just doing the thing
Mhm.
can claim that.
That's a
It's
really
like
good
being a
point.
runner. People who
Ah,
run don't necessarily race. That doesn't make them any less deserving of calling themselves a runner just because maybe they're not
yeah.
racing.
That's a really good point. And I like what you said about we tend to attach it to other meanings. Like how impactful are we being? Is this affecting other people? And why does that matter? I mean, that's probably what's holding me back on writing. I'm struggling to pick up fiction. And it's more of you get that out of your head, but then it's like, well, this is crap. well, this is awful. Well, that look, I wouldn't read that, you know, and it's like, why is there not, this story didn't come out fully fleshed in my, from my brain onto the paper? You know, why do I have to work so hard at it? And I think that's because, yeah, I have this idea that it needs to be really, really good for other people to read it. And as opposed to just, you know, like I'm already thinking, oh, I'm gonna put it out into the world instead of thinking, well, I'm gonna just get this out and make me happy and then see what I want to do with it later. And yeah, we put so much expectations on ourselves.
Well, just being too committed to the outcome and not the
Yes,
process is something that I think a lot of us get really
that's
stuck in. And I really applaud your bravery in that regard in stepping back from your longtime job and just sort of taking that leap of faith and moving into the direction of things that felt warm to you and good to you. I feel like this brings to mind a quote by Kevin O'Leary. Do you know him of Shark Tank?
yeah.
Where he said a paycheck is something that they give you to make you forget your dreams.
Oh, that's good. Yes.
And I think that that is a really valid statement
Hmm.
because you were just in the grind and the relentless motion of doing the thing that you thought you were supposed to do
Yes.
and staying because it was paying the bills,
It was
essentially.
paying the bills. And you get into that uh, you get into that comfort spot, you know, because you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're working every day, you're paying, you've got a mortgage, you've got a car, you know, you're enjoying life, and you just think that's great. And you don't recognize that it's not so great. You know, it's not what you would find great. It's great because you're doing what everybody else does or what everybody else
Mhm.
thinks you should be doing. Um, and because I remember, you know, when I left my job, the pushback I got from all my friends and family was insane.
I bet.
Absolutely insane. Worst mistake you've ever made, worst decision. What are you going to do now? You're never going to come out and, you know, and just like the negativity was outstanding. You know, and same when I booked the 3 month trip, I actually told a few people and got so much flack that I stopped telling anybody I was going to be leaving for 3 months. And it was worth it, you know, because we all have our own journey. And if we listen to what other people say, you get stuck in somebody else's story. You're not living your own life. You're living what other people have told you you need to do. And is that what you need to do? I mean, another time people told me I was making a bad decision was when I was in my mid late 20s and I decided to move to London for 3 years. You know, I quit my job, put all my stuff in storage and went away. And I think that, you know, it's these little things in life that give you hints of who you are, but you ignore them because it's not like everybody else. Or, you know, and people tell you really cool things like you're escaping life. Are you escaping life or are you just doing life differently than what they are doing? You know, because I think we're all different and you can't be the same as everybody else because you're not the same as everybody else. You're a completely different human being. And I think we spend so much of our time trying to be the same as others, whether it's to fit in or, you know, the normal thing that people like to throw out. I've never met two human beings that are the same, never in my entire life. So why we all think we're going to be the same and fit in and be like everybody else, I have absolutely no clue.
I love everything that you said about that, and it really brings to mind the way people were judging you or telling you that you were doing the wrong thing when you were really listening to an inner knowing that you had. Even if you didn't understand that knowing in the moment, you were listening to it. And I really just think that we get very caught up in the opinion of other people, not remembering that those critical statements are said based on their own insecurities or dissatisfaction in their own journeys.
Hmm. Yes. Well, the people that were, you know, when I said I was going to Australia, I only told a few people, and they were so negative, and they were the same people who when I came back after living abroad for a few years, every time I would try and talk about my life when I was gone, they would tell me I was bragging. Or, like I had to learn to stop talking about the life that I had previously had because they didn't want to hear it. And like you said, these judgments that you get from other people, it's their insecurities. They didn't have that life and they didn't want to hear about other people that had that life. Or,
Mhm.
how many times have you done that to somebody? You get really upset when they talk about something and then you realize it's because you're upset that you're not doing that. You're not living your life that way, And so that's exactly what you said. We listen to those opinions and judgments of others, and they're not in our situation. They're not in our life. They're not who we are. So why are we listening to them tell us how to live our life?
Yeah.
Sure, there are certain things we should definitely listen to if we're not catching on to something, I can't tell you how many times I've had people point out I was being unsafe about certain things, but you know, that's a great time to listen to people.
Right. No, but when that has to do with somebody trying to limit you or make you smaller than
Yes.
you're supposed to be, that's where you have to understand the difference and
Exactly.
really just walk your own path. And I think it's just so easy to get caught up in those should haves. You should be doing this, you ought to be doing that type of mentality that the world, lays out for us, all the things that we're expected to do. That it's hard to divert from that if you are amongst people that are unsupportive of that. So it's just a reminder too to really eliminate or severely limit the people that are not cheering you on. You really need to
Yeah.
surround yourself with people who are supporting you on your journey.
It's true. I mean, I had, different, life has moved and people have dropped out of my life, whether it was my choice or their choice. And it's interesting because the people that I let in my life now are way more supportive. And you don't recognize the difference when you are in the middle of it and you're doing your thing and everybody around you is not supportive. You don't recognize how hard that is and how it's, basically like swimming against the current kind of thing.
Mhm.
And it makes things so much harder. And then all of a sudden you're around people who are so supportive and are cheering you on. And you're just like, oh, wow. Oh, this is like, oh, it's a lot easier. It's like, it's just kind of flowing and happening now.
You
And
almost don't know how to receive it.
you don't in the beginning. You don't. You're creeped out. You don't believe it.
Like,
And
what are their intentions? Why are they
that's
so
ex
supportive?
exactly what do they want from me? Yeah.
Yes.
Like, what are they trying to get from me? What are they trying to manipulate? How are they trying to manipulate me? You've got all these things that flow through your mind exactly like that. It does take a while. Like everything, it does not come immediate. It takes some time. And, anything you're doing that's new or different, any change in life is going to take time to get used to. And it's going to take time to become um, better at. I was going to say second nature, but I'm not even there yet in a lot of ways. So it's like
Uh,
I just get better at it.
is becoming the writer that you are now something that is still sort of surreal to you? Is it still something that you pinch yourself about?
Well, this is going to sound awful because, this is going against everything we've just been discussing, but I judge myself like, why aren't I doing more? Why aren't I doing better? Why
Mhm.
am I not getting those fiction stories out that I want to get out? I'm very judgmental of myself and my achievements or lack thereof. Um, it's
Well, but
it's
that's too why we need to surround ourselves with people that are supporting us because we
very
are
true.
so hard on ourselves that we don't need everybody else to be as well.
And that's the thing. It's interesting because I've been to a bit of therapy over the years, and that is the number one thing. I remember when the last therapist I had, she kept saying, well, something about blaming others, and I was like, oh, I have absolutely no blame for other people. It's myself. I should have done different. I should have done better. I don't blame others for where my life is. I blame myself. And yeah, we are so hard on ourselves. I am learning to celebrate the wins a little bit better, because again, surrounding yourself with people who are celebrating the wins and do point it out to you. And I am getting better. I am, yeah, actually, the other day, I think it was about a week or two ago, I was telling somebody how I have almost 30 books published. And they were like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, huh, I have almost 30 books published. Like, I just, wait a minute. And then I started downgrading them. I was like, well, there's planner. They're not stories. They're planners, and there's some a mental wellness workbook, and then there's journals, and I'm downplaying everything I've done, and I'm like, wait, I still did create those. And I was told I wasn't creative. So I did create those. And then I did the whole process of self-publishing them and getting them out in the world. I'm like, huh. So yeah, I'm getting better at maybe not pinching myself, but at least acknowledging what I have accomplished, and where I am now compared to where I was before. And yeah, and then it's little things. I'm a fan of, as I mentioned earlier, doing different things to keep my creativity going. And I have a membership that does the same thing, right? And so the other day I was out, and right here where I live, it's the hot chocolate festival right now.
Mm.
So I went, and I'm a hot chocolate connoisseur. So this is my favorite time of year. So I went to a place and I had hot chocolate, and it was like, yum, and it was great. And then I went to a grocery store. I have never been to this grocery store before. And as I was leaving the grocery store onto the next hot chocolate place I was going to go, I just was like, oh, why don't I have a pen? Oh, I need to write right now. Like, it was just those two different experiences that are just your normal everyday experience, but in a different way. All of a sudden, my creativity was like, oh, I really want to write. Okay, I've got this plan. So while I'm driving, my brain was going through a scene for some characters that I'm writing. And, I was like, oh, yeah, this would be really good right there and there. And it's, it's fun. It's a different way than I've ever lived my life. And I love it. It makes me so happy. Just that you're like I said, I was driving in the road, and my heart, my soul, whatever, it just was like all of a sudden so happy, and it really wanted to write right now. And then the thoughts just started percolating, and it was amazing. And it wasn't using logic, and it's amazing how our whole lives we use logic and um, technical stuff, and we don't nourish the creative side of ourselves. And yeah, it's a good feeling, and that one made me really happy, and that one made me excited to know how I live my life is different than I lived before. And I thought I was happy before, but when you experience that deep down happiness, it's not the same. And it's interesting that that deep down happiness isn't coming from my accomplishments so much as feeding my soul what it wants. And I never thought that was a thing. I always thought happiness was based on accomplishments. And I do experiences, and I get you do get happiness from experiences, but now I'm recognizing that it's because it's something that feeds my soul for me. When I have a fear of water, and I went whitewater rafting, so it wasn't a logical thing, but first, that was such a new experience to me. And I've learned, for me, new experiences are huge, and they don't have to be a huge new experience like whitewater rafting when you have a fear of water, but it's going to a new place, to try an interesting flavor of hot chocolate, or even a place you've been to before and a new flavor, or, you know, of ice cream or cake.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the word I've used a couple times in this conversation already, and just inspiring, really and truly. I mean, just the way that you're rewiring your belief system in what happiness should be. It shouldn't be just like this checkbox of accomplishments that the world tells us we should be doing, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
way things make you feel. And when you are finding happiness, even just in thinking about the thing that you want to do, even just getting excited about the writing
Yes.
that is, you know, on your mind and the thoughts that you want to put down and how you're partaking in an experience that is just that fuel to what you're supposed to be doing, and you can't wait to like get home or pull out your computer or your notebook and start writing about it. What you daydream about and your ability to really feel fun is all the proof you would ever need that you're doing exactly the right thing for you.
Huh. And again, thank you for that validation because it's one of those things where you don't um, recognize uh, that that's you. Yeah, you know it, but again, it's the external validation. Sometimes you really just need to hear it in somebody else's voice or somebody else's words, and you're just like, huh, I guess that is true. Wow. Okay. Huh. Yeah.
Well, you have really just hit on something that is foreign to many adults. I feel like it's for sure my truth in that there is a loss of remembering how to have fun as an adult
100%. Yes.
and not even really knowing what that means,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we get so far removed from just being of ourselves because we're doing all those should type of things that we just become completely disconnected with our purposes and our passions because those things should be fun to us. Our
Mm-hmm.
purposes and passions are fun. And
Yeah.
when we remove ourselves from that path, we forget all three of those things.
Yes. Well, and that's why, like I said, I part of my healing was to go out and do new things, and it's what I have a mental wellness workbook that gives you those challenges. And, I have a membership that gives you those things to go out and try new things and, or those experiences to go try new things. So it's, for me, I have noticed it's always something, okay, so it is something new and it is something that brings you happiness, but sometimes I fall into the trap too, where it's like, oh, this has always made me happy. I know this makes me happy, so I'm going to go do it. And it doesn't mean that that happiness is always going to be that same happiness because now you're used to it. Now it's a regular thing now, it's a comfort zone thing. I was talking about earlier that day that I went out and I got wet at the water park. I was going to walk along the pier that I always go walk along because I really like it and it makes me feel really happy to walk along the pier. And I was walking along the pier and I came back and I looked up the little embankment there, or the hill, and I was like, oh, ice cream shop. I could go to you know what? I'm gonna have a scoop of ice cream. And that'll make me really happy today. Just jumping in that spontaneity. And I went and had the ice cream, and yeah, it was good. And I'm sitting on the promenade or whatever, at the waterfront. But I just kept looking at those kids and all the excitement they were having running through that water park. And I was like, it's like so much fun. Oh, so to be a kid. And I had already done two things that in the past had made me happy. And yeah, I was sitting there and I was in a good mood. I was feeling really content with life. But I just kept looking over at that water park. And then when I was leaving, I was like, you know what? The kids aren't in there right now. I'm not pushing any kid out. I'm just gonna go walk through. And I didn't run, I didn't play and frolic. I just literally walked through it. And my soul, my heart, whatever, started singing. Like it was such a difference. And that's the thing. Like I said the other day, I've been to that place for their hot chocolate before, but this was a different flavor. And it was going to a different grocery store, a different experience. And, I sometimes will randomly pick up a weird vegetable that I've never eaten before and give it a try, or fruit, or, cheese. I think I got this whiskey infused cheese one time, or it was in the whiskey. I forget anyway how it's done, but it's always looking for something different and finding, that part that makes you happy. You might not get that feeling if you're not a foodie. You might not get it from eating a new vegetable, right? But trying that one new thing leads to trying another new thing that you never would have done, that leads to another new thing. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, soul singing, kind of thing, right? It's it's always different, and if you aren't trying the new things, you are, I just explain how I got complacent and comfortable doing something that used to make my heart sing, right? Because you get we tend to do that. Like, we get in some kind of a little rut routine. I don't know what you want to call it, and you're no longer bringing that spark in your life. You're no longer constantly looking for something that makes you feel happy. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be big. I will swear by that one.
There's so much truth in what you just spoke there. And I know all of our listeners are just going to really lean into that and really absorb it because it's true. And I think we just really easily get stuck in the mundane, the routine of the day and forget about those things. I really would love to hear how you are showing other people to do the same thing that you've been doing and how they too can find healing or purpose or fun in their own writing journeys.
I have a very tiny Facebook group because I'm not overly on social media. But a few months ago, I did self-publishing bingo. This month, or sorry, I guess in January, I'm having a virtual writing retreat. So, it's something I always speak about. You need to find your process. Don't listen to what everybody else does and think that's how you have to write. That's how you know, because I actually had people tell me I was not taking it seriously. Maybe not people. I remember one person specifically that if I didn't sit in the same spot every single time I wrote, and if I didn't get up at 4 in the morning, I was not going to be successful. I was not taking everything seriously. I was not um, doing a good job. Basically, I was crap, and she came short of telling me I was crap, but she used other words. And I was just like, wait, what? I'm not a 4 o'clock in the morning person unless I'm just going to bed at 4 in the morning. Like, that is not me waking up. You do not want to be near me if I woke
Mm.
up at 4 that morning. And I am not a sit in the same spot every single time I want to do something. I have to go and find different places. I'm always on the lookout for different places to write. I'll sit in my car at a park. I'll sit in the park. I'll sit in a coffee shop. I'll sit
Mhm.
outside on, chairs at a coffee shop. It's just there is always something I'm looking for, a new place, a new different, and it's because there's different people, there's different things to see. So that gets, everything flowing. For me, I am not a person that needs everything to be the same. Some people need the routine to be able to do it. That's great. I don't tell anybody that. I don't say this is what you have to do or you won't be able to do it. I actually tell people, try what everyone else is suggesting. Give it a go. See what works for you. Does writing at 5 in the morning flow really well for you? Or, at 11 at night? Is that when everything starts coming out of you? For me, usually it's the afternoon. And that's when everything flows out the best for me. Um, you know, um, that's what I talk about when I'm working with clients. That's what I'm talking about in my social media. And then I have a membership, a monthly membership. And that one is giving you a curated experience to go try something new. And you don't have to come up with it. It's just basically, here's something to go do, put it in your calendar. And it gets you trying new things. And um, I actually have different tiers in my membership, and that is the one thing that's in all of the tiers. And then there's also the journal. So, what writing at this time, how did this experience work for you? Did it help you? Did you feel your creativity sparking? Did it to try and get you to understand what works? Because again, we've been spending the whole time talking about this. We don't listen to ourselves and what makes us happy. And if you're not got that happiness, if you're in that, same thing every day, creativity is probably hiding pretty well and it's not coming out to play in the same ways, right?
Mhm.
And then I even have one that we have co-working sessions. So it gives you that time on your calendar to write, to create. And I don't tell people they have to write because sometimes for myself, it's every time I sit down, doesn't mean I need to write. Sometimes it means I'm creating a graphic. Sometimes it means I am, oh, I'm just going to, oh, look at this. I made a cover for a notebook. It's something, or I'm thinking of a way a story, a scene might be working out. It's not something that just immediately happens. You have to think about them, play it out in your head, maybe, fine tune it a little, think of what some of your characters might do if you're writing fiction. If I'm writing, content, that sometimes you need to just be around and have that creativity flowing to get content written, or a blog post written. So I'm not telling everybody they have to come and write a book. I am just giving you that space, though, to get the creativity flowing and recognize it and work with it. Find the process that works for you. I'm a big fan of that. Find the process that works for you.
I love that so much. And what really stands out to me in what you're describing is how people really just, again, get hung up with what they feel like they're supposed to be doing. Especially with social media like it is now. I mean, there are so many different things that come through about learn how to do this, be the best that, level up by doing this. And
Yeah.
this is the only way you'll find success. Like every third post that comes through is something pertaining to that. And you're right. You don't have to be up at 4 a.m. You don't have to only drink herbal tea. You don't have to be vegan, even. I say
Yeah.
that biasly because I am.
Yeah.
But you don't have to, exercise only, whatever time of day. You don't have
Yeah.
to find yourself in any box
Nope.
whatsoever. Um, because you do need to do what works best for you, not necessarily what is working best for somebody else. But it is so
Yeah.
easy to get caught up in that comparison game of,
Oh yeah.
well, this person is successful and they're doing these bucket full of things. So I have to do those bucket full of things too, even though it doesn't feel good. It's
Hmm.
really abrasive and I'm resisting every second of it. I have to
Yes.
do that if I'm going to have their success.
Yeah.
And their success is not my success.
Nope. And 9 times out of 10, like like you said, you're gonna fight it, and it's not
Mhm.
you. You're gonna end up not writing. You're gonna end up not
Yeah.
creating. You're gonna end up not doing what your soul is telling you to do
Mhm.
because you're hung up on the process that somebody else is telling you need to follow. And I there is no way that following one thing is going to make you successful. I don't believe that in
Yeah.
even a little, because we all have our thing and we all have our little spin on everything. I mean, we're having a conversation, we're both using words, we're both talking about the same thing, and we're using different words at different times and it comes across differently, right?
Mhm.
So there's always a different way, and there's no right or wrong. It's just different, and it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's only a good or bad thing when it's the opposite of what works for you.
Mhm. And
Or the right thing.
I just love that you are showing people how to figure out their way um, of being a writer or embracing writing and finding how that can be intertwined to benefit their life and help them find joy and fun in all that they're doing. And it's just a really cool offering, a really cool contribution to the world that
Thank
you're
you.
doing every day. And I just love watching it. It's just really speaks to my heart and again is just truly inspiring.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's I can't talk about having fun and then try and restrict others from having fun, right? And it is really just recognizing what worked for me
Yeah.
and how sharing that with others and giving them the space and knowing that that's what I needed was the space to figure it out. And yeah, I kind of maybe give it a little bit less wide open and than I had. I kind of give people a little throw more options at people right away kind of idea, but you know, that's the idea of helping others. You get away with all that stuff that's unnecessary and that would take more time and give people the opportunity to find their space when they didn't even know there were all these options available and now
Yeah.
they have them.
Tressa, I absolutely love your approach in all of this. Tell
Thank
us what
you.
you want us all to leave this conversation thinking about.
I want you to A, have fun in life, but find what's fun for you. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to go whitewater rafting and you don't have to write. But what do you want to do? I know somebody that wanted to um, build, I think it was build cars or just start studying about cars. Like it was just that was the thing, just a dream. So find what works for you and do something that you've always wanted to do. Just start. There's no expectations about where you're going to take it, but just start. Have you always wanted to learn to knit? Learn to knit. If you can't afford to go learn to knit, there's YouTube. There's always an option to find what you want. I left my job and had no income and found a really good price to go on traveling, right? Like there are going to be options if you can kind of look around outside of the box and just know that if it's something you really want, there will be a way for you to do it and, to learn it and keep going. Keep looking for that singing in your heart, in your soul, and keep trying new things to get you to where you find that.
Thank you so much for that and just for sharing so much of your journey today and just the purpose that you have found and the pain that you experienced. I really just appreciate you just being so open about that and evolving in the way you have to really embrace it all in such a beautiful way. It's really just amazing. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this conversation. It's been very, very heartwarming and enlightening, encouraging for me for sure.
Well, thank you so much for having me on today and letting me talk about myself because, that's
Yeah.
always what people enjoy doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And to our listeners, all the ways to stay connected will be in the show notes, the Facebook group that was mentioned, as well as the website, Instagram, all the ways to be part of this journey with Teresa is going to be available to you with a click. So definitely connect, reach out, and find your own fun. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this immensely today.
Thank you. I did too.